Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the 143. This is episode 149. We are coming at you live.
Got another doozy as we get through another week of football. Another week of being a Cowboys fan. Obviously get slaughtered, and to be honest, I'm completely okay with it because that means that a lot of people are going to lose their jobs at the end of the season, rightfully so. But unfortunately, Jerry will get to keep ownership of the Cowboys.
Yeah, the team's falling apart just like Jerry World is falling apart on Monday Night Football as debris was raining down from the ceiling when we tried to open the roof. Pieces of metal, large pieces of metal, were falling from the ceiling. There's not anything about this Cowboys team right now that's not a complete joke.
Even the stadium is falling apart.
Yeah. So it's like anything Jerry touches just turns to junk, and I'm about sick of it. Nick's about sick of it, but at the same time, at this point, we are 3-7, tank for the number one pick.
Yep, obviously, like I said, I'm just looking forward to everyone losing their job at the end of the season.
Top five pick would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying we should draft a quarterback, but sure, Sanders could be available.
Bring him and Coach Prime.
I'm not.
Do an entire culture change.
I want to say before we get into this episode, and this is a little bit related to that, but a little bit unrelated. Nick and I have been day one Coach Prime Colorado Buffaloes fans. Okay? We're not really a big college football podcast, but that needs to be known. Okay? And everybody wanting to hop on the bandwagon now, we don't want you. Okay? That's all I got to say. Okay? And I do think he should come to Dallas.
That would be pretty sick.
I think we need a big culture change, and I think obviously Coach Prime brings that everywhere he goes. So we'll table this discussion for the off season, as I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about this particular subject. Aside from the Cowboys game, there was some good games this week, some not good games, some good games, some divisional matchups. We're going to dive into all that. First, we're going to start you off with the stat of the week, brought to you by our sponsor, Andrews Logistics. Nick, this one's interesting. Joe Burrow leads the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Jamar Chase leads the league in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. Yet the Bengals have a 20% chance to make the playoffs.
Yikes.
They keep losing these close games like they did on Sunday night. We'll talk about it here in a bit. But it's crazy that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are having the best years of their career so far.
And it's getting wasted.
It's being so wasted. And, they're on primetime. We're watching. Like, this isn't like Cowboys shouldn't be in primetime games. This is like Bengals are 4-7, but they are primetime, you know?
And they're not going to make the playoffs.
No, but these games are good. Like, they're playing the games well.
They have a similar record to the Cowboys.
4-7.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No. Yes.
It's not the exact same, but it's similar. But obviously, two completely different teams that we're talking about here. Yeah. One that actually has potential and one that's just a waste of poverty. Yeah. Player of the week is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, 11 catches, 161 yards, and 2 touchdowns. As the Jacksonville Jaguars got absolutely smoked by the Detroit Lions, who were firing on all cylinders offensively. David Montgomery had himself 2 touchdowns. Yeah. They won 52-6.
Let's just talk about that game since we're on it. I don't think there's much to say here other than we already know the Lions, honestly, will probably be in the NFC Championship game and probably most likely, as far as we can tell, the Super Bowl. They're unstoppable right now, defensively and offensively. This game was not about the Lions. This game was about how bad the Jacksonville Jaguars are right now. Yeah. And they came into the season, all these high hopes, renaming their stadium Trevor Banks Stadium.
As he's not even the starting quarterback?
Nope. But when he was really bad, just like Dak, kind of like even when he was in, the team was awful. The Jags are the Cowboys this year of the AFC. High hopes, awful play. And just like the Cowboys, the Jags need a complete reboot on their side.
Yep, good on the Lions. They just beat a bad team the way they should have been beat.
Which is what they've been doing.
The Vikings struggled against the Jags last week, but the Lions went and handled business as they should have. That's what should have happened. Thursday Night Football, we saw Eagles versus Commanders, NFC East division matchup, and those games are going to be ones that decide the division.
Yep.
They're going to play again here towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
But Eagles win by 8. Yes.
Saquon Barkley had a big game, like 146, 2 touchdowns. The thing with the Eagles is you stop the run game, you stop the Eagles. You don't stop the run game, you don't stop the Eagles. That's how it's been for the last few years. Saquon helps a lot. He's a great back. Tough to see the Eagles doing good, but at the same time, we're doing so bad that it doesn't even matter, So
not even close to the division race that we can't even.
And the Eagles aren't winning the Super Bowl, so that's all you need to know. And neither are the Commanders.
Chris Boswell puts the Steelers on his back as he scores all 18 points in their interdivisional matchup against the Ravens in Pittsburgh.
That was a tight game. That game is always, I think it was a stat like the last 6 times they've played, neither team has scored over 20. Those are always just defensive battles between the Ravens and the Steelers. A classic rivalry. They hate each other. 2 of the longest tenured coaches in the NFL, in Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, going at it. Just a great rivalry. And I am so sick of the Ravens hype. So I am glad that Chris Boswell beat the Ravens on Sunday, along with the help of his defense and the rest of his team. Something to note is that on the other side, Justin Tucker did miss 2 pretty easy field goals for him. The first time he's missed a couple in a few years, I think, in the same game. And so, obviously, that was the difference, 2 points. So that was big for his team.
I think I saw this via Twitter that he has now lost the most all-time make percentage by
most accurate kicker,
1/10%.
To Eddie Pinheiro.
That is unfortunate for him. Obviously, not really that big of a deal.
He'd rather be making them, though. They've been losing some games, some tight games, and part of the reason is because he's missing some
Obviously,
kicks.
they lost by 2, so you think about any one of those, and that's a whole different ball game.
Steelers' defense is no joke. Hasn't been easy to stop the Ravens, and they held Derrick Henry to 65 rushing yards.
I mean, their offense has not been that impressive at all this season, but they still managed to make it all the way to 8-2. Just their defense absolutely smothering people.
Their defense is that good.
But Russell Wilson, I do still think he looks better back there than Justin Fields ever did. Actually, just a decent quarterback presence back there. He's throws a better ball, makes better decisions. I think they're scared. Definitely where they need to be.
He's a danger, Russ.
That's what they do call him.
Colts Jets, just worth noting. Anthony Richardson comes off of being benched for saying he's tired, which we ripped into him for, which was very well deserved, by the way, all you TikTok haters out there that came at me and Nick. Anthony Richardson, you're not allowed to sit out because you're tired as a QB. That's never been allowed, and it's not allowed still. But we got to give him props. He came out. I think he learned from it. And
he was not tired on Sunday.
No, he was running with his head down. He wasn't getting hurt when he would get hit. He led the game-winning drive, touchdown run at the end. But, I mean, the Jets are an awful football team this year. But you got to give props to the Colts and Anthony Richardson. And the Colts, even though they're 5-6, they're still very much in the race.
The AFC South is a pretty tight race. Obviously, the Texans win, move on to 7-4. But still,
a lot of season left.
You could maybe even think about a wild card spot as well. If the Texans start to run away with it,
they're very much
you can sneak in a wild card spot.
The Jets, on the other hand, will not be getting a wild card spot. And their season is over, and I'm so sick and tired of hearing about them. As I'm sure everyone's sick and tired of hearing about the Cowboys, I'm just as tired of hearing about the Jets. Let's stop talking about them because they are irrelevant.
I mean, they made some big changes that just did not make a difference. I mean, they finally got Aaron Rodgers in a full season of play, and they are just as bad, if not worse, with him. They add
You know why?
Devontae Adams. He makes no difference at all. They fire Robert Saleh, and literally no change happens. Just an
Problem is Aaron Rodgers.
interesting ordeal they have.
Not everybody can be Tom Brady. You can't just go to another team and be good. Plus, he only won one Super Bowl with Green Bay, and we act like he's just the best quarterback of all time. So, I don't know what his last Super Bowl win was 12 years ago. He was with Green Bay for like 10 years after that, right? He didn't chill with the Rodgers hype, guys. Vikings get another win against the Titans. Not much to say there. The Vikings are staying in contention. It's going to be tough to beat the Lions, but the NFC North is going to get a little tight here as we get towards the end. Vikings are one game back. I think they're going to play them again. I think
Sam Darnold looked better in this matchup. The NFC North, the Packers won again as well.
Yeah.
Against the Bears via a game-winning field goal getting blocked.
Second week in a row we've seen something like that happen.
Second week in a row, and the Packers move on to a whopping 7-3.
It's going to be a tight division between those three.
And so you have the Packers at 7-3, the Vikings at 8-2, and then the Lions at 9-1.
Vikings-Lions is the Week 18 game. So
that could very well be a division decider.
Depending on how these teams do throughout the next few weeks.
NFC North, not really coming out of nowhere. I think a lot of people predicted this to be, a lot better, but definitely not a 3-team race as we were anticipating.
Seahawks, 49ers. This is an interesting division. So it's like with the Niners losing to the Seahawks, Geno Smith with a rushing touchdown, 13 seconds left in the game. Seahawks take the win. Niners go to, I think they're 5-5. Yes, 5-5. They are now last in the division. But first in the division is Arizona was at 6-4. So this whole division is separated by a game right now. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the NFC West, as LA is also.
Obviously, Rams got a win against New England, but still a lot of weeks left. We just finished week 11, and with this entire division being decided by one game, who knows? You don't really, because at this point you'd kind of expect San Francisco to start pulling away, and Arizona's been hot the last couple of weeks, and so you thought they'd be the ones pulling away, but the Seahawks and the Rams keep kind of hanging around, and the 49ers, they're still in a position where they can, hang around and do some damage. So it'll be heating up here over the next couple weeks as games get more important. We'll see more division matchups. Those games are looking like they're going to matter more and more as the weeks come. So, this is going to be an interesting one to look forward to. Taysom Hill puts the team on his back as the Saints destroy the Cleveland Browns. Not much to say for Cleveland. They just don't have anything right going for them. But Taysom Hill, with his one or two appearances that he likes to make every single year where he just goes off in the most random game for no reason at all and makes fantasy owners mad for not picking him up on his random 40-point week.
And then everybody picks him up the next week and he gets
and he's going to get one touch for 2 yards or something. Not much to say for the Saints. I mean, their season's been over, but that was just something worth noting was the Taysom Hill effect, as we usually see it a couple times here and there.
As the Saints are in a cap nightmare every year because they sign weird players to big contracts. Taysom Hill, they have spent a large amount of money on for him to be this good every week, but he's not.
I'm just looking down at the NFC South because we were talking about it. That one is still somewhat of a tight race because the Saints won and then the Falcons lost. And so they're atop at 6-5. Then you have Tampa Bay 4-6, New Orleans 4-7, and then Carolina 3-7. But obviously you're down but not out if you're the Saints or the Buccaneers still in a position where you could win that game.
Yeah, and Mike Evans
win that division. I'm sorry.
Soon, I think Mike Evans, they get him back.
Yep. Obviously, it stinks that they did not win any of those interdivisional matchups between the Falcons, but neither here nor there.
Might get another shot at them. We'll see if they get a wild card. Falcons win the division. Anything could happen at this point. Classic rivalry, Buffalo versus Kansas City. In Buffalo, Josh Allen just puts the team on his back on a 4th and 2 with 2 minutes left. They're up by 2. Decline the field goal option. Know that if they give the ball back, Kansas City will most likely drive down the field. So they decide to go for it. Josh Allen just with a great, how long was it, that run? 26-yard touchdown run on 4th and 2 to seal the game. Buffalo is undefeated in the regular season against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes when Josh Allen and Buffalo against Patrick. But the Chiefs are undefeated against them in the postseason. So like they said after the game, not really the game that matters here, but they did get a great win. Credit to Buffalo for beating the Chiefs. Chiefs are now not undefeated.
No more. Obviously, it was inevitable. There were too many of those close games in there where you think they were going to overcome it. But it is props to them for being, 9-0 for as long as they were, just because they've had so many pieces go down and out and missing, but they still managed to find ways to win every game week in, week out. Obviously, good win for Buffalo, knowing that you can win those tight games with against a clutch quarterback, but obviously the one that matters is when they're going to play again in January in Buffalo or Kansas City or wherever that game is going to be played at. Obviously, Josh Allen, good win from there. I think around week 2 or 3, I believe me and Joseph were talking about the Bills when they got slaughtered by the Cardinals, just saying, they've got some things to figure out, and I think it's safe to say they have. They've moved on to 9-2, and so, good for them.
I got to say
getting
this,
hot.
And I know all of America loves the Bills right now because they defeated the evil nemesis in Kansas City who always wins. But we say this a lot about the Bills, and I got to bring it up again. All right. You can have as many cool regular season wins as you want. You can finish first in your division. You can be 13-3 or whatever they are every year. But in the end, you have to win in the postseason. And that's something they haven't done. And until I see differently, I'm like, cool, good win, moving on. But they have to win in the postseason. They have to win the AFC Championship game and at least go to the Super Bowl.
They've been very Cowboys-esque in recent years.
A little bit better, but
regular season warriors with nothing really to show for it in the postseason. Obviously, they've won a little bit more meaningful games than we have, but somewhat in the same boat a little bit, if you ask me.
Their kryptonite is playing Kansas City in the playoffs. And it used to be, is it just because they're going to Arrowhead? No, they lost at home last year. And until they win in the postseason, it doesn't even have to be against Kansas City, but they gotta get to the Super Bowl. Until that happens, people are going to still doubt them. It's just like the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. You can be regular season warriors as much as you want, but you got to win in the postseason. So I just think every year we have the Kansas City Buffalo game. Every year the Buffalo Bills beat the Chiefs. And then every year the media acts like the Bills are the team of destiny. And it's like, at what point? We do this every year. It's the same thing with Lamar. He's going to get another MVP. Sure, whatever. But like we do it every year where it's like they're not going to win in the postseason.
Yeah, obviously the Chiefs win when it matters most there in the end in January, and in February, they hang around and win those games when they need to. But obviously Josh Allen, he's been kind of painted as a postseason fraud, and everyone knows it. And so he's got to come out and
whether or not it's
win a game,
because obviously Bass did miss the kick last year, but it's still on you as the quarterback. So that's just how life works. You want the big bucks, you're gonna have to take the blame, and he does a good job of that. But let me just say this: Kansas City's not playing for November. All right, that's all I gotta say.
They do play for February. They know how to win.
Yep.
The Bengals and the Chargers face off.
Who will not be playing in February?
In Sunday, maybe the Chargers.
That's true.
They moved on to 7-3 as Jim Harbaugh comes in and makes an immediate culture change and just flips the program around immediately.
Winning the games that they have the leads in.
That's kind of crazy because everyone was talking about at the beginning of the season or during the offseason when they first got him that, yes, it's nice that they got, Harbaugh in as their coach, but don't expect immediate results. But they do get
You're seeing
immediate results as they move on to 7-3. Nearly blew it.
He's brought out another side of Justin Herbert.
Yes.
Justin Herbert is way more confident in his throws, his decision making. You see all the clips. Harbaugh just absolutely loves Justin Herbert, pumps him up all the time on the sideline.
Yeah, like he's catching passes from him in warm-ups or whatever, and there's that clip of him yelling at himself when he drops one. But obviously the big story there was they blew a 27-6 lead and let the Bengals come all the way back and tie it up 27-27, but then there at the end they let a game-winning drive. J.K. Dobbins runs it in for 29 yards and a touchdown, and they would win the game.
Bengals, the thing is, I mean, their offense has been great all year. Their defense is not great. You saw that in the first half. Defense decided to kind of lock down in the second half. Then it came down to the leg of Evan McPherson, and he missed 2 pretty easy field goals that he normally would make. And, so the Bengals they did come back. They shot themselves in the foot. But at the end, I mean, Chargers had control of the game for a good amount of it. And you do see that immediate culture change with Jim Harbaugh, just the fact that they blew the lead, but they still won the game. And used to, they would just blow the lead and lose the game. So,
because we're not used to seeing Justin Herbert game-winning drives.
No.
In the past, I feel like he's blown a lot of those where he'll throw an interception or something.
He just hasn't been confident.
I feel like he did that against the 49ers.
He did.
Last year or 2 years ago, and then I remember him doing it once against the Chiefs. But obviously, Justin Herbert just looks like a whole different player. Obviously, we've always known the talent, the arm talent was there, but just needing a coach. I think
believe in him.
Everyone knew Brandon Staley wasn't it, and that they needed somebody else.
So, to my recollection, Jim Harbaugh was available to all 32 teams.
Yes.
Yeah, and just, I mean, how many teams are kicking themselves right now that needed a coach, that really needed a culture change, speaking of Dallas, and just didn't even try. That would have been that. If I had to pick anybody, that would have been the guy I would pick. Jim Harbaugh. He wins wherever he goes. And people do think in the future, not necessarily this year, but in the future he will. I mean, he's a winner. That's what he does. He wins championships.
I think that would be cool to see a Herbert Harbaugh Super Bowl. Obviously, maybe not this year, but at some point.
But if it does happen this year,
eventually, yeah.
I wouldn't hate it.
It stinks to see the Bengals kind of their downfall, just because it was. I always think back to that season where they were in the Super Bowl and it came down to the final play when they were against the Rams, and you kind of just always wanted them to be that good again, but they've just. Unfortunate. Last year, Joe Burrow had some injuries, and then they were just nagging all year long, so they were not the same. And then this year, they just have not been winning games. Their defense has not been great.
And they're going to lose T. Higgins next year.
Yes, they're going to lose T. Higgins.
Cowboys.
No, that would never happen.
Okay, well, we need him.
That would be a smart move.
That would be genius.
And we would not make a smart move in the offseason.
No, we would not. He's probably going to go to the Chiefs or something.
But Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, not Jamar Burrow. The Jamar Burrow duo, as Joseph was talking about at the beginning, have been having career years, but unfortunately have nothing to show for it.
Jamar Chase will get paid. He will break the record for highest paid receiver after this season. If not, he will no longer be a Cincinnati Bengal. So they're going to have to pay him. And what they should have done, what every team needs to learn, is to pay the guy early. Cowboys especially. We don't need to get into that.
We got to get some offensive line protection for Joe Burrow.
They haven't been able to do it at all since he's been there.
He has been getting absolutely destroyed. And even was it last week that they played the Ravens? Yeah, that was. He was getting demolished on every single play.
Lost by 1.
It's just crazy because he's been ridiculously good, but they got to get some offensive line help for Joe Burrow. I mean, it looks like he's going to lose his life.
We say that
almost every play.
I don't think many NFL teams listen to our podcast because we see the same thing every year.
You could have a winning franchise if you would just set aside 30 minutes of your week.
Not even 30, though. That's the crazy thing. It's not like we're on here just rambling, all right? honestly, Jerry, if he sold the team to us, I'd make sure that nothing falls from the ceiling at AT&T.
Absolutely. We'd honestly tear the stadium down and completely rebuild it, and we would turn it just 90 degrees to the left, just so that the sun can't beam in through the windows, or we would at least tint the windows.
You would think that's something you think about when building a multi-billion-dollar
stadium. It's not like that's the first time we've ever addressed that issue. Was last week.
No, it's been a couple of years now that we've had this issue, and sometimes it affects the playoffs.
It was a big, I was about to say it was a big deal in the 2021 playoffs.
Year, it won't be a playoff issue this year.
Yeah.
So
we won't be playing in the playoffs this year. Well, here's in our shows under review, I brought you a quote from the Paul Bear Bryant. He said, "Don't give up at halftime. Concentrate on winning the second half." And that's the truth.
That is the truth. Cowboys can't win either half, or we could maybe put that into effect. But other teams will certainly use that quote. Thank you for tuning in this week. We'll see you next week with another episode of Under Review.